Welcome back. You're watching Political Exchange, where we continue our discussion on how to deracialize South Africa's economy. Zweli, before the break, Xolani was speaking about, a series of problems tied to developing small businesses, and one of it was entitlement. We know, for example, that a lot of small business get work from government and particularly from procurement, but it's been plagued by intense corruption and in some cases it's poor delivery of services. We know of houses that are not up to standard and to scratch. How does the NEF make sure that the support that it gives small businesses deals with some of those pitfalls and get it into the heads of people who are running these businesses that those are practices that simply cannot be tolerated?
As I mentioned earlier, that the one thing we believe in is giving people the best chance of success. And we also believe that in planting a seed, you will get a whole lot more. And the idea is that we never look at investing in businesses that are essentially just going to be, one-hit wonders. The idea is to build businesses which will be sustainable and that will be around in the long run. And the big thing that we focus on is making sure that the entrepreneurs that we fund are entrepreneurs who have that view in mind, that it's not just about winning this one tender and then you go away and you spend that money and then you have to rely on just winning tenders all the time. But the whole point of the procurement system that government has had was to develop companies so that they can actually build up the necessary skills for them to grow and become bigger entities. And that's what we try and focus on. Even though we will support a small company that will get let's say a contract from government or let's say from the airport to go and cut grass, we look at what is the bigger picture. That is only the start, but we want to see the company actually grow and become a whole lot bigger. So we always look forward to funding companies where we truly believe that the entrepreneurs have that vision in mind. And that's why we put in mentors who will actually help them see the bigger picture. Because it's very easy when someone's just decided to start a business because they've lost a job or that, to only focus on the small, but never focus on what can I actually become. And that is something that requires a lot of mentoring and it requires a lot of assistance, which is non-financial, for you to actually realize this is what I'm starting with, but how do I grow this business? How do I make it bigger than what it really is? And unfortunately, that is not something that can be, that someone comes up with and they're born with it. It's something that can be learned and can be actually put in someone so that they can build their businesses. And that's what we focus on. We focus on getting the right entrepreneurs, making sure that when they do come through the door, we are able to identify what the skills that they have, identify their ability to want to grow this thing to a bigger thing, and also identify where the gaps are.
Okay, but let me bring in Xolani here. Government is doing all the right things on paper, but the reality is often that small businesses, for example, go under because governments don't pay on time, and small businesses are always under pressure to, to have cash and to be able to run their businesses. What is the BBC doing to try and assist, this lax approach to funding or to payment rather? President Zuma has made promises that 30 days will be, the only time that is allowed. But we've seen big companies like Sanyati go under. What is your experience?
Well, unfortunately, our experience also is that, as you know, cash flow is king. So a number of companies go under simply because they do not have cash flow. They cannot sustain their contracts, as it were. We know that the government has been decisive in saying we would want the government departments to pay people on time, to be accountable. Right now, they've placed the responsibility with the CFOs to say, as part of your performance, you need to make sure that people are paid on time. But from the BBC side, we are establishing a hotline which would enable us to also collect data, because we do not know how far wide these issues are and what the problems are. Sometimes we may even blame government, but sometimes it is the entrepreneurs themselves. Because sometimes people get contracts and instead of planning through the cycle of the project, people start buying cars, start buying and living life big, because now they've got access to money that they've not really been accustomed to. So it's a two-way problem. So for us is to educate our members to begin to understand that there is money, the money in the till is not your money until you have delivered, the contracts, for people to be able to budget properly, for people to resource their business properly. So we need, whilst we blame government, but on the other side, we also need to educate businesses themselves to be disciplined in the manner which they spend money.
One of the things, of course, in the South African economy that is critical is job creation. We've just recently had the Empowerdex making presentations to the subcommittee around compliance around broad-based black economic empowerment. But what is really interesting is that in the information that they've gathered, there isn't an obvious link between broad-based black economic empowerment in terms of compliance and job creation. How important is job creation as part of the BBC's overall vision of getting, larger numbers of black people to actively participate in the productive sides of the economy?
Well, unfortunately, as I alluded earlier, you see the issue of compliance sometimes negates the effect of business, because you're sort of lumping things that have nothing to do with the entrepreneur. If you are a 100% black-owned company, you are expected to go through this compliance exercise, and sometimes you find that those things that are lumped, as an example, issues of employment equity, why should they become part of procurement? Because there is legislation that deals with employment equity. But if we can remove some of the elements, within compliance, and focus on how do you support the entrepreneur, how do you make sure that entrepreneurs have the necessary skills, have the necessary resources, have ease, to markets, and give people big and sustainable opportunities. Because more often than not, small business fail because of limited opportunities. If you get a one-year contract, how do you build capacity? How do you build skills? Therefore, what we are saying is that government should significantly set aside large projects, particularly on these large infrastructure programs, where capable companies could come together, black-owned companies can come together and form one big company that would then focus on the specific contract, so that when this contract has been delivered, they have the necessary capability on their own to look for other large contracts. So small is not sustainable. So we need to begin also to focus on ensuring that we can scale up these companies. But more importantly for us is that people have got to have the core knowledge to be in that industry or sector. They've got to have the necessary competency. If they don't have, then they must attract the necessary competencies necessary to, if you're in construction, get the right skills in construction. Because more often than not, and that's why bridges are collapsing, that's why houses are, because there are people who perhaps have got friends in high places who get these contracts, and then they try to subcontract, and now they don't have the core knowledge, so they cannot see when something is going wrong, so they don't even have time, to manage these businesses. So it is important to focus on those people with the necessary core skills. And within the BBC, we have a number of companies in various sectors, in construction,
But what responsibility do you take as the BBC to root out corruption? Because for every corrupt government official, there's a business person ready to give a bribe. So it's a two-way street. How do you clean up your own act?
Well, we have taken corruption as one of our major enemy as the BBC. In fact, when we talk about work ethic, part of our strategy in terms of our national conversation on work ethic, which we'll be launching in September, is also to focus on work ethic and the concept of work. This entitlement, the reason that people are entitled, that's why people can even pay bribes, because they believe I'm entitled to that contract. A person cannot walk away, so we want to instill that work ethic that ensures that people are disciplined, people understand that they have to take responsibility, that you have to run a clean business, as it were.
How does the NEF ensure due diligence, where entrepreneurs with the relevant skills are actually mentored? Because we know that for a lot of small businesses, it's securing the contract, but the delivery aspect is often outsourced to a second or third option. What is there in the NEF's framework that ensures that those who deliver the core business are actually the people who get the assistance?
One of the key things that we do, which I sort of touched on earlier, is that we do a very big entrepreneur assessment process when the entrepreneur walks through our doors. And the biggest thing that we look at is in terms of, do they have the necessary skills to deliver on whatever it is that they need to do? And if they don't, where will they be sourcing that skill? And that is the one key area that we focus on, because we always believe that, you know, for you to be able to grow the business, you do need that, being able to deliver on something and being able to actually do good on the contract that you have, so that you can get bigger contracts in future. So one of the key things that we look at when an entrepreneur works in is what skills, over and above being an entrepreneur, what skills do they possess as an entrepreneur and the field that they're going into. And secondly, over and above the skills they possess, who are they partnering with, if they're partnering with anyone who can deliver those skills, and if they're not partnering with anyone, where are they going to get the skills? That becomes very key for us to actually understand how they're going to do that and how they're going to deliver on the service that they need to do. And I just wanted to touch on the issue on the job creation. The one thing that we believe is that it's very difficult to create jobs with existing markets and existing businesses that we have in South Africa, and we believe that the new jobs will not come from the existing business, but rather it will be coming from new developed companies, newly developed entities that will actually be able to increase the industrial capacity of the country. With the current industrial capacity we have, you cannot add on any new jobs. You actually need to increase that capacity with projects such as the infrastructure projects, with projects such as the beneficiation drive within the mining space. Those are key issues and key areas where you can actually create jobs, which is why we truly believe that we look at creating industrialists who will be able to not only just look at building a business, but building a business that will actually be in those key sectors that can actually create jobs and increasing the industrial capacity of the country.
Xolani, quickly, in 30 seconds, what's the way forward?
Well, for us, I think it is more very much important for us to make sure that we focus on those growth-oriented sectors and build the necessary capacity and infrastructure and enable businesses to thrive.
Okay, that's where we have to leave it. Tune in again tomorrow night for another edition of Political Exchange. I'm Karima Brown. Goodbye.